this morning we're going to be doing some Ikoria Should I Craft It reviews, because I don't really want to judge the power levels and rate these cards with 5 stars or things, because really all I care about from a casual kind of player's perspective is, should I craft this card? And as someone who's made some really dumb crafting decisions. So like my example would be, I crafted Rugel's Bloodfast in a mono red meta, which is a card that you pay life to draw cards. It was horrible craft, horrible idea, wasted my wild cards to begin with. So let's just start with green is where we're going to start this sucker off. So we're going to put on a little music while we go. And let's do this. Classification. First card, an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When classification enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +20/+20. Don't craft this card. We don't really need to talk about this that much, but this is just not a craftable card. Don't waste it. A lot of times, fine, we'll go back. A lot of times, I'll talk about it, right? So this is gonna just, a lot of times these put all your eggs in one basket of one creature don't work out that well. Maybe it works if you have a hexproof creature. I don't see it happening. I don't see it being a thing. So please do not craft this card. The end. Mythos of Brokos is a 4-mana sorcery, rare and green. If blue and black was spent to cast a spell, search your library for a card. Put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle your battlefield. Then shuffle your library. Return up to 2 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. I would not craft this card either. I would not use any mythics or any of your wild cards in this card. It's interesting. It's kind of cool. There may be a combo deck that someone comes up with someday. That doesn't mean you should craft this card. It doesn't mean that it's a competitive deck archetype, if this ends up being in it, that you should use. It's too slow. I mean, green just has insane ramp and insane card draw right now. Green other cards, but right, green with Uro, stuff like that. You don't need this card. This card it's unnecessary. Gem Razor is a 4-mana creature. It's a beast. It's 4/4. Has mutate for 3. Has reach and trample, and then says, whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. This one I'm more on the fence about, but I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think mutate is going to be very good. I think maybe there's going to be a narrow set of cards where mutate's awesome, and I don't think this is one of them. So start out with, I would not craft this card either. Don't craft this one. Kogla, the Titan Ape. He's a 6-mana legendary creature ape. He is a 7/6. All right, and he says, when Kogla, the Titan Ape, enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Whenever Kogla attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls, and then for 2 mana, return target human you control to its owner's hand. Kogla gains indestructible until end of turn. So far, this is the best card I've looked at, right? You play it, you get an instant effect when it enters the battlefield. It has a recurring benefit as you attack. It has a way to protect itself, so it has evasion of some kind, right? It can become indestructible, which is great. The only problem is 6 mana ends up being, it's like, would I rather have this or a Questing Beast? Or would I rather have this or a Pelucranos? Again, green has so many strong options that I don't think Kogla... I guess I would put it this way. I don't think you need to craft him right now if you have a lot of the green powerful cards. If you're looking for something on the top end, again, right, we have so many options, right? Like, should this be a Nissa? Would you want this, or would you want a Nissa on the battlefield? I mean, now it's a little bit different, obviously, but right, if we're talking about your rare wild cards, what are you going to craft if you don't have a Nissa yet? Would you craft this or Nissa? You'd craft a Nissa instantly. You would not craft this card. So I'm going to have to give it a do not craft. Do not craft this card. I mean, we can wait and see, maybe in the next meta, maybe after rotation, something like that. But I just don't think this card is going to cut it in the current decks that are out there. And the last green card, we've got Vivian, Monsters Advocate, Legendary Planeswalker, Vivian Reed coming back. Something that bothers me, this is a small tangent, but something bothers me about the way Wizards has been doing kind of this rollout of these new sets is like they keep like old Planeswalkers that we know show up to these different planes. And I have no idea why they're there. Like, why is Vivian on Ikoria? Like, is there a reason she's there? I get she likes animals and monsters. I don't know. Just doesn't seem that clear. You'd think that'd be the easiest thing for me to find out and understand. All right, Vivian Monsters Advocate. She's a mythic, so a little bit higher tier. 5 mana. Sorry, I wanted to take a drink. 5 mana, legendary planeswalker comes into play with 3 loyalty counters. She has a passive. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Okay. +1 ability, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. Seems not bad. And then -2, when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. I like this card. I think you should craft. Now, if you bought the pre-release, you're going to get one of these. So, I think it's worth having 2 Vivian's Monsters Advocates. One, because the +1's great, right? You play her, she goes to 4 loyalty, you get a defender for her, you get something to defend. Also, it verifies it. Sorry, what am I trying to say? Differentiates your threats, right? Now your opponent, if you +1, it's like, oh great, I have a 3/3 to deal with, and I have this planeswalker to deal with, which keeps making 3/3s. This is why Nissa is so annoying, right? Because she comes down and then she creates a land that defends her. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? Come on. But yeah, I think having 2 of these is completely fine. The -2 is really useful, right? If you're holding a creature, you get to play that and go find another creature. Search your library. Just go search it and find it. So there could be some killer cards that you want to go find, especially if you're playing some big guys. Worth it. Okay, that's the end of green. Hopefully that was helpful. We're on to blue, people. Blue, blue, blue. Let's do it. Mythos of Aluna. 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 blue, sorcery. It's rare. It says, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. If green and red was spent to cast a spell, instead create a token that's a copy of the permanent, except token has, when this permanent enters the battlefield, if it's a creature, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So this is cool. You can copy any permanent on the battlefield. And if it's a creature, you spend the right mana, the right colors of mana, then it will do a fight action. Traditionally, I guess I would not craft this right out the bat, for me personally, mostly because I think there's someday I could see actually this card being one that spikes up in some kind of combo deck, right? Because it can copy enchantments and artifacts and planeswalkers. It can copy any permanent, right? And so that's more powerful than something, say, like that doesn't see a lot of play, like a Quadruplicate, I think is the name of the card. Lets you copy, pretty sure it's a creature. And people don't play that very often. So I guess I would not craft this early on because it's just kind of a little too speculative. Too speculative on whether it's going to be good. Maybe, in like a month or 2 months, maybe there's a deck that uses 4 copies of this. At that point, you're already, that's not really the situation we're trying to deal with here. We're trying to deal with what do you do in the first month where everything's chaos. Do not craft this card in the first month. Voracious Great Shark, 5 mana, 3 colorless, 2 blue, a creature, a shark, and he's rare, and he's a 5/4. And his text states, he has flash, and when Voracious Great Shark enters the battlefield, counter target artifact or creature spell. I think I think you're safe crafting 2 of these if you like to play flash decks. I think a lot of flash decks, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, here's the issue for this card in flash decks. A lot of times flash decks want to run a little bit lower. So, right, they sneak something small out. And then they just beat you down with that and then counter your spells over and over and over and over again until they win the game. Voracious Great Shark is 5 mana, although he is 5 mana. And, right, this sits in a spot that possibly, an Embercleave could sit, or maybe like a Gadwick is something that you would play instead of this. Like in that, when I'm looking to spend 5 mana, am I looking to draw more cards? Do I want a Great Shark? But overall, I think this card you're safe crafting 2 of these, right? These are going to fit in really nicely in every flash archetype, basically, because every flash archetype is going to use blue, whether it's Izzet, or whether it's Dimir, whatever the flash archetype. Whatever the flash archetype is going to be, the most popular one, there's going to be a few, I think, floating around to begin with. But I think you're safe, because this is going to work in a lot of decks. It's going to help a lot of decks out. So it's a good card. It's a strong card. You're safe crafting. Get a couple of them. That's fine. Sea Dasher Octopus is a 3 mana creature octopus. Rare. He's a 2/2. 2 blue in the casting cost. So Sea Dasher Octopus has Mutate for 1 colorless, 1 blue. Then he also has, as his text, Flash, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This card is, I think you're safe having 2 or 3 of these. I think these are, again, another card that's going to be in most Flash decks, and probably one of the better Mutate enablers out there. So a little recap for Mutate. As we go forward with this, we're going to see really expensive Mutate abilities. But the important thing to remember is that for big creatures or for creatures that have amazing mutates, it's whenever any creature mutates onto them, it activates their mutate ability as well. So, right, this is a 2-mana mutate ability. That's really good, right? That's a cheap rate to get some of the mutate abilities that we're going to see in this review. So, I think you're safe having 3 of these. I guess you could probably go the full play set because I think it is a card, right? It's not legendary. It draws more cards itself, has flash, so you can bop it out there. I don't think it's as good as the old Curious Obsession thing, right? Because they had cards like Dive Down and some other like wizard counter spells that would protect it, right? I don't know if you're going to be able to protect your Sea Dash or Octopus as well, but it's a very nice card. It's very strong. You're safe having these. You can craft this. No problem. And Shark Typhoon is I want to say this is the last one. We'll see. Shark Typhoon, 6-mana enchantment. It's rare. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So this ability, I think I understood the words, but I don't think I understood the power, but this card is really strong. So I was watching some of the pre-release streamers the other day, and man, every time, just imagine, right? I play a Teferi, I get a 3/3 flying. I get a 3/3 flying shark. I play a Nissa, I get a 5/5 flying shark. I play Chandra, I get a 6/6 flying shark, right? It doesn't matter. Any spell you play, you get sharks. You just keep getting them. I mean, this is like a high-end win condition in, I feel like in almost any deck that plays blue. And then on top of that, we've even got to cycling for X, 1 colorless and 1 blue. Discard this card, draw a card. When you cycle it, you create a XX blue shark creature token with flying. So you get to draw a card. Well, you discard this. But you get to draw a card. You get to create an XX creature, and cycling is an ability, can't be countered, right? So Teferi, you can do it in front of Teferi, doesn't matter. You get this creature. It's great. It's an amazing card. So I think you're safe. Now the trick is, right, how many of these do you want? The answer is probably only 2. That's all I'd say, right? How many 6-mana enchantments can you run in your deck? Probably not a lot more than 2. So you don't need any more than 2. I think that's great. That does it for the blues. Now we're on to black cards. Mythos of Neth Roy. Destroy target non-land permanent. Oh, sorry, I totally skipped all the other things. It's a 3-mana instant speed spell. It says destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature or if green and white was spent to cast this spell. Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature. So the wording is so bad on this card. I mean, they could have used probably some punctuation to make this easier. So right, it says Mythos of Neth Roy. Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, or if green and white was spent to cast this spell. So if you spend, I'm pretty certain the way this works, even though again I think the language is bad here, but if you spent green and white and black, basically, right? So if you spend all 3 colors, you can destroy any permanent. But if you don't, then you can only target a creature. This is a good card. It's going to be a little tricky to see, will this push out things like Murderous Rider, or what else would it be competing with? There's a few other removal spells in the 2 and 3 range. So does it push out 2-mana removal spells? Does it push out 3-mana removal spells with a little bit more value to them? So it'll be interesting to see. I think for some harder control decks, if you're in Abzan running black, green, white, if you're running some kind of Abzan control, which isn't really an archetype right now, this card you could see playing 4 of them, or at least 3. I don't know. I guess early on I would not craft this deck unless you're a hardcore Abzan player already. Don't craft this card. It just doesn't fit. Right, you have to be playing Abzan for this card to be worth it. Otherwise, there's just better rares that fill this role. So don't craft this card. I'm sorry. Hunted Nightmare. It is a 3-mana creature nightmare. It's a 4/5. It has Menace. When Hunted Nightmare enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature they control. This could be very good in a mono black aggro deck. That being said, I wouldn't craft this early on. It's a little bit too circumstantial, right? Like, do you want to be running this card if you're up against mono red, a card like mono red. I don't think so. Do you want to be running this card if you're up against like a humans deck, which I think will be an archetype that people are going to play. No, you don't want this. If your opponent's gonna have a creature, you don't want this. Now, obviously, maybe this is a sweet card you board in against a really hardcore control deck, right? Because on turn 3, you play a 4/5 with Menace. That's really strong, right? You don't have to worry about that stupid wall from Birth of Metalese. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. So, maybe it's sideboard. Maybe it'll be good in mono black. Maybe I'll just completely be wrong and I'll hate myself because this thing will be super annoying and I'll have to deal with it in games. But I wouldn't craft it early on. I'd wait. Dirge Bad is a 4-mana creature bat that has mutate for 6. So it has flash and flying. That's nice. Okay. And then whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. You are safe crafting. Oh, boy. I'm going to say you're safe having 2 of these. You're safe crafting 2 of these. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should take that back. You're safe. Don't craft any of these. Just wait for the meta to settle down, because honestly, like this card is probably the best, one of the better mutate cards we've seen, right? Because it has flash, right? So when you got 4 mana up, at the end of your opponent's turn, you flash this in, and then you mutate in on your main, during your main phase of your next turn, and then you get the mutate ability on this thing, right? The mutate cost, I wouldn't pay it's mutate for 6 is a bad rate, but having something mutate onto this at a cheaper cost, now that's great. If you could mutate a couple times, like this card's a blowout. So, this card is valuable. It's good. It's just hard to say, again, does it crowd out? Does it push out the other removal spells that are out there? I don't know. I think it's mostly going to depend if there's a flash archetype with a little bit of mutate mixed in. Will that make sense? And I think that is possible. I think that is actually quite likely, in fact. So you're probably mostly safe having a couple copies of this, but if you're really risk averse, and I am pretty risk averse, I would say don't craft many of these things, or any of these. Extinction Event, 4-mana sorcery, choose odd or even, exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value, and they tell you 0 is even. 0 is even. I would not craft any of these. I think it's a little bit too it's too limited, right? Now maybe my opinion would change if we knew that there was like certain decks that played a lot of a certain type, but I think my problem with this mainly is like if this hit planeswalkers too, or another kind of permanent, right, this would be insane against like a Uro deck, right? Uro's 3 mana, Nissa's 5 mana, Teferi's 3 mana. Like there's a ton of creatures and cards that line up in that area. Interesting thing that this does give is it gives black a way to deal with Dream Trawler if you're in like a black, if you're not running other board clears. I guess black has a lot of ways to deal with Dream Trawler, but a non-targeted way to deal with Dream Trawler. So, I don't know. I wouldn't craft any of these. There's plenty of board clears in play right now. If you really need a board clear, I guess you can, but I wouldn't, right? There's Shadow of the Sky, there's Kaya's Wrath, there's all kinds of things. So I wouldn't craft this and those things are more reliable. Think about that. They clear everything, not just the odds and evens. So, and we're on to white. Let's see what they did for white in this set. Mythos of Snapdax, a 4-mana sorcery. Each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifices the rest. If black and red was meant to cast a spell, you choose the permanents for each player instead. It's not a good card. I would not craft this card. There's like one use case I see for this card, and that's if you're playing like a Mardu sacrifice deck with Mayhem Devil, and you want to get a ton of Mayhem Devil triggers. This is a way to do it, but it's probably just not worth it, right? Those decks just want to like kill you with all their other tools, and this seems like slow and kind of dumb, so I would not do it. I mean, another problem with it is like it kind of assumes that your opponent has things that, like if someone has a Nissa out, like just a Nissa, this card doesn't get rid of the Nissa. It doesn't get rid of it, right? It still gets to stay out there, and then your opponent just keeps making creature lands, like. And this doesn't even get rid of the lands, so I don't know. I don't think so. Drannith Magistrate, 2 mana, creature, human wizard. He's a rare. He's a 1/3. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. I would not craft this card. It's a sideboard card for sure. It could possibly be a very powerful sideboard card eventually. I just think it'll take time for the meta to develop, and there's no reason to craft this early on for any reason, right? So obviously the benefit of this is it stops things getting casted from exile, so it stops adventure creatures, it stops it stops escape, like the Uros coming from the graveyard. But it just probably is not worth it. I mean, does this just, you play it on 2 and then it just dies immediately, your opponent just kills it? I mean, that's like a criticism of every creature, obviously, but it's like, this is not, a lot of times with those decks, like those decks have legs, they can go a long time, and those games can take a while. And so it is a criticism to say Drannith Magistrate, is it just going to be removed? Because for it to be valuable, it has to live like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 turns probably before you could be in a position to kill the Uro deck, depending on what you're running. But yeah, nope, don't craft it. Cub Warden, 4 mana creature cat. It's a 3/5, has mutate for 4. Lifelink, whenever this creature mutates, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. No, don't craft it. It just feels like pretty much limited stuff. That's it. I mean, it's a cool card. I just don't think it's really that good. So long. Yeah, drink coffee here. I think this is our last one. Luminous Broodmoth. Creature insect. It's a 3/4 for 4 mana. Has flying. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So just know, I'm pretty certain that if this is out during a board wipe, all your non-flying creatures are coming back. So that's pretty sweet. How many should you craft, though? At Mythic Rare, I mean, this is I think this is a pretty decent card. Like, even a 4 mana 3/4 flyer is something that's tedious to deal with. Right, we already see, actually, people play the Archon of Sun's Grace, which is a 4 mana 3/4 that has Constellation, gets you more Pegasus tokens. People play that card, so I think people would play this card, especially in a deck that's kind of like running a little aggro shell on the low end. So I think you're actually safe having a couple of these. I think you could safely, if someone puts out a deck this week or next week, and it is a, you know, like a black-white aggro or red-white aggro or something, human deck, and on the 4 mana slot, let's say they have 2 Luminous Broodmoths, I think you're safe crafting 2 Luminous Broodmoths. I think this is going to be a good card. It's going to enable a lot of different decks over time. It's a great card. Safe. Boom. Lava Brink Venture. I was wrong, not the last one. 3 mana, a creature, a human soldier, a 3/3. This one states, as Lava Brink Venturer enters the battlefield, choose odd or even. 0 is even. Lava Brink Venturer has protection from each converted mana cost of the chosen value. So basically you can make this card, give it protection from, you know, even or odd costed cards. So yeah, that's important to remember, right? Because that's instant spells, that is creatures, that's anything. I think this card is good. I think this card's going to stick around, and I think you'd be safe having 2 or 3 of them, probably. I think you could craft 2 or 3, and I think it's going to show up in a lot of different decks. I mean, a 3/3, so a 3 mana play that, if we name odd, can't be bounced by Teferi, is right for the most, over time, the most popular decks get pretty well defined. And so I think this card will be very powerful, honestly, in a, you know, just as time goes on and on, this card's going to get more and more powerful, because as the decks become more defined and more rigid kind of in the cards they play, I think you're going to be able to pretty reliably select even or odd, right? So like for a card like this, I can select, yeah, again, like I said, I can select odd, Teferi can't bounce it, my opponent just like Uro can't block it. I mean, there's lots of that. Again, I'm kind of like talking about the current meta with this card, but it's like, right, there's a lot of powerful things about once the meta is developed. So I think you're safe crafting this card. I think you're safe actually having 3 copies. I wouldn't go 4, because typically in the 3 mana slot you are looking to play some other reactive tools in there. So, but this card is definitely annoying once it hits the battlefield. Weird to red. I think I should take a small break to get a drink of coffee again. All right, sweet. Unpredictable Cyclone is an enchantment for 5 mana. It's rare. If a cycling ability of another non-land permanent would cause you to draw a card, instead exile a card from the top of your library until you exile a card that shares a card type with the cycled card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Cycling 2. I have no idea. I mean, I think this will be a card that's in some combo decks and things, but honestly, it's obviously powerful, right? So I cycle a non-land card. Instead of drawing a card, I get to just randomly reveal cards, exile cards off the top of my library, and the first card I hit with that shares a card type with the cycled card, I just get to play it. I get to play it for free. Which could be insanely powerful. As we're going to see, there are some cycling cards that are... And let me make sure, does the card you reveal have to have cycling as well? No, it just says share card. There's some big creatures in this set. So you could definitely cheat out some junk. So let's keep going. We'll hit it. Craft it. I would not craft any of these to start out with. Again, you'll probably see cool decks that cheat out like really big creatures with this card, but just on average like a 5 mana enchantment that doesn't do anything when it enters the battlefield are not very good. So moving on. Everquill Phoenix is a 4 mana 4/4 creature phoenix. Has mutate for 4. Okay. Mutate. We don't often see a mutate cost equal to the creature cost. So mutate for 4. Flying. Whenever this creature mutates, create a red artifact token named Feather with 1 sacrifice feather. Return target phoenix card from your graveyard to the library, or from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. No, don't craft any of these. I don't think this is very good. It's a cool card. I like the ability. It's fun. It's flavorful, right? You get your little phoenix, your feather token. You can bring your phoenix back from the graveyard, back from the dead. That's cool. This card is not... It's just... for a few reasons, it's probably a little bit below the standard power level right now, especially at 4 mana. But then at worst yet, it doesn't even just slot into an archetype that exists right now very comfortably. So don't craft Everquill Phoenix. 0 copies. Mythos of Vadrock is a 4 mana sorcery. Mythos of Vadrock deals 5 damage divided any of you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. If red and blue was spent to cast a spell until your next turn, those permanents can't attack or block and their active abilities can't be activated. I like this card. I think you're safe having 2 of these. The only thing I worry about is that since it's 4 mana, typically, in my experience, you want to be a little bit more proactive at 4 mana, not this reactive, especially at sorcery speed. That's what I think hurts this card the most, right? If I could sit back on my turn, on turn 4, play my 4th land, maybe keep a counter spell up and keep this up as an instant and just like wait for my opponent to play their big 5 mana planeswalker and just, instantly blow it up, like that would be great, but I don't know. So I think you're actually safe having... Man, I take it back. 4 mana sorcery does not feel like it's going to fit very well anywhere. It is a cool card, but it's maybe a sideboard card, and I don't even know if it's going to push out the other board clears. So, no, don't craft this card. 0. Don't craft any. Luca, the Copper Coat Outcast. So, wow, that text is small. It's 5 mana. Legendary Planeswalker Luca. Mythic rare. Comes in with 5 loyalty counters. +1, exile the top 3 cards of your library. Creature cards exiled this way gain. You may cast this card from exile as long as you control Luca Planeswalker. So this is nice. A little buff over the 4 mana Chandra, which when you would +1, you'd exile a card. You can only spend it on that turn. So that was tough. This one, though, it's a little bit different as well. Exile top 3 cards of your library. Creature cards you can cast. So if you exile anything else, sorry, they're gone. Bye-bye. Even if you have Luca. -2, exile target creature you control, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with higher converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library. I don't love it. It's fine. It's always tough to judge these abilities that write as a conditional, right? I have to have a creature on the battlefield already. So, and if I don't, then I don't. This -2 does nothing, so that's tough. And then -7, each creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Okay, so I could spend a lot of time talking about this card and about how I think these abilities could be good or bad, but honestly, I'm just going to say don't craft any copies of this card. It's interesting, it's neat, but man, does it not. I don't feel like it fits anywhere. I'm not saying a deck couldn't come up, but if for my wild cards, they will not be spent on Luca Coppercoat Outcast in the first month. Never going to happen. Udara, Wandering Monster. Legendary creature, dinosaur turtle. Has trample haste, has cycling. Hey, trample haste on an 8/8 is scary. When you cycle Udara Wandering Monster, shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. If you've cycled a card named Udara Wandering Monster 4 more times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. So here's the conundrum. If you want to play this card, you have to craft 4 of them. You pretty much have to, right? Because the whole point is to cycle him 4 times, and if you're, like, you can't just have one Udara the Wandering Monster. That's not acceptable. So, I'm going to say I think you're pretty much... Don't craft this card, I think. I don't think it's worth 4 rares. Now, here's what I would say. I think there will be a deck with Udara the Wandering Monster that depends on it. And people will play this deck. I think it'll be like a low-tier deck. It's not going to be a very powerful deck, but people will play this deck. It'll work. It's going to be like a mono-white, the equivalent of mono-white life gain. I don't know why people play mono-white life gain. I don't know what they see as fun about it, because it kind of is... It just feels so like it's one track, right? It's like, okay, either I'm going down the... I got the little cat that gains life gain, gains +1/+1 counters whenever I gain life, or I didn't, and I probably lost after that. This card feels like that as well. So people are going to, I think, play this card and play the deck that tries to cycle through their deck as fast as they can with red and then get this Udara the Wandering Monster out. And you'll lose to it sometimes. You'll be like, this deck's stupid. I hate this deck. But if you don't pull any of these, I would not craft 4 of these. Like, I don't think it's probably worth 4 wild cards to play this deck. So, I don't know. That's my thought. I'm not going to do it. Oh, and we're to the multicolors. So I'm going to stop here before we do multis, and maybe I'll do the video tomorrow or something, or maybe later today. But yeah, I'll have to come back because I gotta start work. This takes forever, dear God. All right, have a good one. We'll do it.